Drexler got a piece of that drive back.
Hopefully we will be playing Chicago.
Back reverse, and then the beautiful finish with the left hand.
In 1992, Clyde Drexler reached the NBA Finals under Michael Jordan's shadow, but 5 Trailblazers who knew his game best had a simpler answer. He's unstoppable. That year, Drexler finished second, only to Jordan in the voting for Most Valuable Player. He led Portland all the way to the championship round, and the whole country got ready to watch him face the Chicago Bulls. Reporters loved a simple story, so they turned the series into one big shooting guard contest. Fans watched to see who would win that duel, and once Chicago came out on top, many casual fans quietly filed Drexler away as the guy who came in second place. And as we go back to the start of his rise, use the hype feature and give this video some hype, because the deeper you look at Clyde's game, the harder he becomes to explain. That framing missed almost everything important about him. The players who shared a locker room with Drexler saw a much bigger picture. They did not see a player who fell short next to Jordan. They saw a complete basketball machine built from size, speed, power, vision, rebounding, and a calm mind that never seemed to crack. This video is not here to argue that Drexler was better than Jordan. The real point is simpler. Jordan's shadow was so large that fans never got a clear look at everything Drexler could do. 5 teammates can walk us through how that full game worked, piece by piece, until the true shape of his greatness becomes clear. Mychal Thompson was there first, and he understood the raw physical problem Drexler created before almost anyone else in the league did. Terry Porter played next to him for a decade and watched how Drexler's unselfish choices made him even harder to trap. Buck Williams arrived in 1989 and witnessed the moment Drexler turned playoff doubts into playoff command. Jerome Kersey ran the fast break beside him and saw how his rebounding turned missed shots into fresh disasters for the other team. Cliff Robinson lived beside his calm, quiet fire and learned that a quiet man can still burn hotter than anyone else on the floor. Each man saw a different piece of the puzzle, and none of those pieces looked anything like a player who was second best. To understand how all of that came together, we have to go back before Portland, before the finals, and before the Jordan comparisons even existed. We have to go back to Houston, where a tall, skinny kid was already teaching himself how to fly, long before the rest of the basketball world ever had any real idea what was coming. Mychal Thompson was the starting center for the Trailblazers when Clyde Drexler arrived as a rookie in 1983. From the very first practices, Thompson could see that this new player did not fit into any normal box. Drexler stood 6 feet 7 inches tall and weighed 222 pounds, which was already a rare size for a guard. But the numbers around his body were even stranger. Reports described a 44-inch vertical leap, a 40-yard dash of 4.2 seconds, and strength enough to bench press more than 300 pounds. Thompson had played alongside plenty of gifted athletes, but Drexler moved like someone from a different level of the sport entirely. Most players who were that big were not also that explosive off the ground. Drexler had size, speed, and strength stacked on top of each other, and Thompson noticed it before almost anyone outside the locker room did. Part of that came from where Drexler grew up. As a kid in Houston, he practiced on playground hoops that stood 11 feet high, with rims made of bent and twisted metal. Jumping and finishing on uneven equipment like that forced him to learn balance and touch that smoother, easier hoops never would have taught him. He also spent many long nights working out at the University of Houston Athletic Center, even while he was busy studying finance in his classes during the day. That mix of study and sweat built a base of conditioning that most rookies simply did not have. At the University of Houston, Drexler had not even played as a guard. He was a forward inside the famous Phi Slama Jama front line, grabbing an average of 9 rebounds a game and mixing it up under the basket with bigger, stronger players. He was used to fighting for position under the rim next to future Hall of Famer Hakeem Olajuwon, not spacing the floor along the three-point line. Portland selected him with the 14th pick in the 1983 NBA draft, and most people expected him to keep playing that same power forward style. Instead, head coach Jack Ramsey saw something different. Ramsey believed Drexler had the body of a wing player and the vision of a point guard, so he pushed him toward the perimeter and used him as a situational ball handler during his very first season. That was an unusual gamble, since most young forwards stay forwards. Ramsey was betting that Drexler's mind could catch up to his body, and that bet turned out to be exactly right. That decision changed everything. Drexler had to learn how to read a defense from 20 feet away instead of from underneath the rim. He learned to bring the ball up the court, set up his teammates, and still attack the basket like the powerful rebounder he had always been. Thompson watched this transformation happen up close, and he understood exactly why it made Drexler such a nightmare matchup. A smaller guard could not handle his strength or his ability to post up and finish through contact. A bigger forward could not keep up with his speed, his first step, or his ball handling on the open floor. Drexler did not fit cleanly into either box, so coaches were forced to guess, and guessing against a player with this many tools rarely worked out well. Thompson believed in Drexler's ceiling so strongly that before the 1984 NBA draft, he pushed Portland's front office to select Michael Jordan with the second overall pick. Thompson's thinking was simple. If Portland already had Drexler, adding another elite wing player next to him could give the team two special athletes who complemented each other perfectly for years to come. The front office did not take the advice. They chose center Sam Bowie instead, and word got back to Thompson that repeating his opinion publicly could cost him money. This video is not here to relive Portland's draft decisions. What matters is not the pick itself. What matters is what the story reveals about Drexler, a veteran center who watched Clyde in practice every single day, who guarded him, who ran the floor with him, believed his teammates' talent was already good enough to build an entire era of basketball around. That is not a small compliment. That is a center who had seen plenty of talented players telling the front office that this particular teammate belonged in a class by himself. Thompson's read on Drexler's body and instincts was the first crack in the wall that separated Clyde from ordinary opponents. Size alone can be planned for, speed alone can be planned for, but a player who carries both plus the mind of a passer breaks the simple categories that most scouting reports rely on. That physical advantage opened the very first gap in every defense Portland faced. Terry Porter, who spent a decade playing right next to Drexler in the backcourt, saw how Clyde made that gap even wider by choosing, again and again, not to keep the game only for himself. For a full decade, Terry Porter ran the point guard spot right next to Drexler, and together they built one of the most durable and productive backcourts in the league. Porter often pointed to Drexler's passing as the most dangerous part of his whole game, even though it was the part that got the least attention from the outside world. Everyone talked about the dunks. Everyone talked about the highlight plays that ended up on the evening news. Porter talked about the reads, the small decisions made in a split second that never showed up in a highlight reel but still decided who won the game. In close games, Portland trusted the ball in Drexler's hands during the final minutes. He could score when the defense left him an opening, and he could find the open man when the defense collapsed around him instead. That kind of split-second decision-making does not come from athletic ability alone. It comes from a player who has already trained his eyes to see the whole floor, not just the rim in front of him. A less patient player might quickly force a tough, rushed shot just to feel like he had done something. Drexler was different. He was comfortable waiting one more second, letting the defense commit itself, and only then deciding whether to shoot or pass. Some of that vision traced back to his rookie season, when Jack Ramsey had used him as a part-time ball handler. That early experience gave Drexler a passer's instincts to go along with a scorer's tools, and he never let go of those instincts even once he became the team's biggest offensive threat. Contemporary wing Eddie Johnson believed Drexler had enough pure scoring ability to chase huge individual point totals almost every night. The way a small handful of true offensive stars around the league did, Drexler could have taken that path. He had the size, the touch, and the athletic gift to demand the ball on almost every possession if he had wanted to. Instead, he often chose to pull back on his own shot attempts so that Porter could find his rhythm too. That choice helped Porter average 7 points a game across a 5-season stretch. Numbers that came directly from playing beside a teammate who was willing to share the ball rather than chase his own totals. A star who hoards the ball can still be a great player, but a star who shares it becomes something much harder to prepare for, because now the other team has to respect every player on the floor, not just one. Here's why that decision mattered so much on defense. If Drexler wants every shot for himself, an opposing coach can build a whole game plan around trapping him and forcing the ball out of his hands. But if Drexler is just as happy setting up a teammate, that same trap becomes far more dangerous for the defense than for Portland. Send 2 defenders at Drexler, and somebody on the Trailblazers is left open, and Drexler is patient enough and skilled enough to find that open man almost every time. Leave Drexler in single coverage instead, and the problem does not go away either. One defender rarely had the combination of speed and strength needed to stay in front of his first step, and even fewer defenders could recover once he planted his foot for a baseline spin move toward the rim. Picture a defender who guesses right on the first move. Drexler still has a second gear, a stronger shoulder, and a softer touch around the rim waiting for him. Porter came to see this as an unsolvable riddle for opposing coaches. Trap him, and someone else beats you. Guard him alone, and he beats you himself. There was no perfectly safe third option because Drexler was equally comfortable scoring or passing, and a great defense cannot cover both possibilities with one plan. Coaches love simple choices, plans with one clear answer. Drexler refused to give any coach that easy comfort. The regular season numbers back up exactly what Porter saw happening on the floor. In the 1985-86 season, Drexler averaged 18, 5 points and 0 assists a game, showing off the pure playmaking gift Ramsey had first uncovered. By 1987-88, his scoring climbed to 27, 0 points a night as he grew into a more confident shooter. The very next season, in 1988-89, he combined 27, 2 points with 7, 9 rebounds and 7 steals, proving his impact reached far past just the scoreboard. Even later, in the 1991-92 season that led into the finals against Chicago, he still posted 25, 0 points and 7 assists a game, showing that scoring more never meant passing less. Those numbers answer a simple question that every defense had to face. How do you trap a superstar who is completely comfortable giving up the ball and who still somehow controls the possession anyway? Porter watched teams try answer after answer for a decade, and none of them ever really worked. Some teams tried extra contact, some teams tried disguised coverages that showed one look and switched to another. Every plan ran into the same wall. Drexler read the defense as it happened, and by the time a scheme revealed itself, he had already decided what to do with the ball. None of this happened by accident. It grew directly out of the early lessons Jack Ramsey had given him as a rookie point guard, years before Porter ever set foot on the same court. A player who learns to read a defense early in his career rarely forgets how to do it, even once his role and his scoring totals change completely. Of course, great regular seasons alone do not settle every argument. For years, critics wondered whether this skill could hold up once the pressure of the playoffs arrived. Buck Williams then arrived in Portland in 1989, right in time to watch Drexler answer that question. Before Buck Williams got there, Portland had a real problem, and it was not a secret. From 1984 through 1989, the Trailblazers lost in the first round of the playoffs 5 years in a row. Fans and reporters around the league asked the same tough question every single spring. Could this team, and could Drexler in particular, actually win when it mattered most? That question hung over Drexler for years, and it deserves to be taken seriously here, not brushed aside. It was a fair question at the time, built on real losses, not just idle talk. But it was never the final answer. It was only the obstacle that Drexler was about to clear, one hard-fought series at a time. Williams joined the Trailblazers in 1989, and he arrived at exactly the right moment to watch Drexler grow into a different kind of leader. During the 1989-90 season, Drexler actually lowered his scoring average to 3 points a game. That might sound like a step backward, but it was the opposite. He was trading personal scoring for defense, for balance, and for a stronger overall team structure. A trade that plenty of star players in his position would never have chosen to make. Portland responded by winning 59 games that season, one of the best records in the entire league. Williams saw this shift up close, and he understood it as a sign of real maturity, not a loss of confidence or aggression. Then the playoffs arrived, and everything Williams had hoped to see finally showed up. Portland swept Dallas in the first round without much trouble. Next came San Antonio, a longer and much tougher series, and Drexler answered by averaging 1 points and 4 assists a game as Portland pushed through. Then, in Game 5 of the Western Conference Finals against Phoenix, Drexler exploded for 32 points and 10 rebounds in a single night, helping send Portland to the NBA Finals for the first time in over a decade. Once Portland reached the finals against Detroit, Drexler kept producing at an even higher level, averaging 4 points a game while shooting an efficient .503 from the field. Portland ultimately lost that series, but the number tells its own story. Even against the toughest, most physical defense in the league, Drexler did not shrink. He scored more efficiently than he had all season long. Williams later said something simple but powerful. He said he had never seen Drexler play with so much poise, calm, and control during the postseason. That word control is the key to the whole section. Drexler did not respond to playoff pressure the way many young stars do by forcing shots, chasing highlight plays, or trying to do everything alone. Instead, he stayed patient. He let the defense make the first move and only then decided how to punish it. Williams had played alongside plenty of talented scorers before joining Portland, but he said this specific quality, staying calm while the whole building screamed around you, was rarer than raw scoring talent itself. Here's what that looked like in practice. If a defense sent an extra man to trap him near the sideline, Drexler did not panic or force a pass into traffic. He waited half a second longer, let the trap fully commit, and then delivered the ball to the exact spot where the defense had just left a gap. If a defense tried to deny him the baseline the way scouting reports always suggested, he adjusted his angle and attacked a different part of the floor instead of running the same failed play over and over. That adjustment made possession after possession, wore down defensive game plans over the course of a full series, not just a single quarter. A coaching staff might spend an entire week designing a scheme meant to slow him down in Game 1, only to watch Drexler quietly counter it by Game 3, forcing them to scrap the plan and start over in the middle of a series they were already trying to win. This pattern showed up again the following season as well. Against Seattle in the 1991 first round, Drexler averaged 0 points a game, carrying Portland through a tough 5-game series. Against Utah in the second round, his playmaking took over, and he averaged 6 assists a game, setting up teammates almost as often as he was scoring himself, while Portland closed out that series in 5 games as well. Then, against the Lakers in the conference finals, he still managed 4 assists a game, even though Los Angeles built its entire defensive focus around stopping him, sending extra defenders his way on nearly every trip down the floor. None of these numbers happened because Drexler suddenly became a different player once the calendar turned to April. They happened because the calm, controlled version of Drexler that Williams described was always in there. The playoffs simply gave the whole league a much closer look at it. Under the brightest lights of the season, when a single mistake could end a team's whole year, Drexler became steadier instead of more frantic. That is an extremely rare quality, and it is exactly the kind of quality that never shows up cleanly in a single box score line. It shows up instead in the small choices a player makes when the pressure is highest, choices that either shrink a season or extend it. Williams stayed close to the middle of this transformation the entire time, because it was his arrival, and Portland's shift toward tougher, more disciplined team basketball that helped unlock this version of Drexler in the first place. A great individual talent surrounded by the right pieces and the right culture can finally show the world what it was capable of all along. And that is exactly what happened once Williams and Drexler shared a locker room. Williams brought toughness on the boards and steady, unselfish leadership of his own. And that combination gave Drexler the freedom to lead in a calmer, quieter way instead of trying to carry every single possession by himself. But scoring more efficiently under heavy playoff pressure was only part of this larger story. Jerome Kersey, who ran the wing right alongside Drexler for over a decade, saw a completely different problem that opposing teams could never quite solve. Even when a defense did everything correctly, forced a tough, contested shot, and got the miss it badly wanted, the possession still was not over yet. Clyde could simply go get the ball back himself, again and again. Jerome Kersey ran the wing next to Drexler for more than a decade, and together they formed one of the fastest, most athletic transition pairs in the entire league. Kersey often drew the toughest defensive assignment on the other team's best wing player, night after night across an entire season, which freed Drexler to roam a bit more and hunt for loose balls and rebounds all over the floor. Kersey came to understand that Drexler's rebounding was just as dangerous as his scoring, even though almost nobody outside the locker room talked about it that way. For his career, Drexler averaged 4 offensive rebounds a game, an unusual number for any shooting guard. In the 1988-89 season, that number rose all the way to 7 offensive rebounds a game, a total that would have been impressive for a power forward, let alone a perimeter player who spent most of his time far from the basket. Big, physical centers around the league, players whose entire job was to control the paint, were regularly beaten to loose balls by a guard who was supposed to be standing 20 feet away from the rim. Coaches and scouts around the league found this number hard to believe at the time, and some fans who look back at the old stat sheets today still find it almost impossible to explain. Kersey saw exactly how this kept happening. Drexler had an unusually quick second jump, Most players jump once, land, and need a moment to gather themselves before they can jump again. Drexler could land and rise again almost instantly, often beating much bigger players back into the air before they had even finished coming down from the first attempt. Picture two players going up hard for the exact same rebound at the exact same moment. Both miss the first grab, and both land at nearly the same time. One of them needs a full extra second to reset his legs before jumping again. Drexler needed almost none of that extra time to reset, and that tiny gap was often the entire difference between a rebound for Portland and a rebound for the other team. He also had a strong feel for where a missed shot was likely to land once it bounced off the rim, which let him get moving toward the ball before some defenders even reacted to the miss. Portland's starting center, Kevin Duckworth, was not known as a highly agile rebounder, and that left extra space open near the basket that a slower center simply could not cover on his own. Drexler exploited that space by crashing in from the weak side of the court, arriving from an angle that opposing big men were not always trained to expect from a guard. Most defenses assign their biggest, strongest players to box out near the rim and leave the wider perimeter almost entirely unwatched on the boards. Drexler treated that unwatched space as an open invitation, and he used it night after night. Once Drexler grabbed one of these rebounds, the possession usually did not slow down. He turned these boards directly into fast breaks, pushing the ball up the floor himself or firing an outlet pass ahead to Kersey, who was already sprinting toward the other end. That instant turnaround created a brutal problem for opposing defenses. A team could execute its defensive plan almost perfectly, force a contested miss, and still end up giving up an easy basket seconds later because Drexler had already turned defense into offense before the other team could even set up. Tired defenders, who had just spent themselves contesting one shot, now had to sprint back the other way immediately with almost no time to catch their breath before facing another scoring chance. This is what made Kersey and Drexler such a difficult pairing to defend at both ends of the floor. Kersey brought his own speed and length on defense, while Drexler brought balance, anticipation, and an ability to turn stops into scoring chances almost by himself. Together, they made Portland's transition game one of the most feared parts of the roster, a weapon that other teams had to prepare for on almost every single possession. In the 1988-89 season, the numbers around this pairing tell the story clearly. Drexler posted 9 total rebounds, 7 of them on the offensive glass, along with 7 steals and 2 points a game, showing that his impact stretched across every part of the box score, not just the scoring column. Constant motion like this took real energy and even greater mental discipline. Sprinting the floor on offense, then crashing the glass, then sprinting right back to set up defense, night after night, for an entire season, asks a lot of a player's body and mind. Most players who try to do all three things at a high level eventually slow down somewhere, whether that means easing off on defense, skipping the crash to the boards, or simply running out of legs late in games. Kersey watched Drexler manage all of that without ever seeming to run out of gas, and he came to realize that part of what made his teammates so effective was a calm, steady internal engine that rarely showed strain, even under a heavy workload. That same calm engine is exactly what Cliff Robinson noticed once he joined the team as a rookie in 1989. Cliff Robinson arrived in Portland as a rookie in 1989, carrying loud energy and an intense vocal personality everywhere he went. He talked, he shouted often, and he wore his emotions right out on the surface for everyone in the building to plainly see. Drexler was almost the exact opposite. He was quiet, calm, and businesslike, and he often spent his time before games reading a book or a newspaper instead of pacing around or hyping himself up. To a young, energetic rookie like Robinson, this was a genuinely strange thing to watch every single day. Robinson would try hard to fire him up before big games, the way teammates often do for each other, shouting encouragement or trying to get a reaction out of him. Some early coaches even mistook Drexler's calm behavior for low effort or a lack of focus, since a player who is not shouting or pacing does not always look like a player who is ready to compete. It would have been easy for those coaches to draw the wrong conclusion and assume that this new player simply did not care as much as his energetic new teammate. Robinson came to understand that this reading was completely wrong. Robert Horry, who joined the team later, remembered watching Drexler arrive at practice, sit down calmly with a newspaper, and then step onto the court and dominate without any long warm-up at all. Drexler could outrun and dunk right over his own teammates in scrimmages, moving from complete rest to elite performance almost instantly, as if his body simply did not need the slow build-up that most other players relied on. Most athletes need a good stretch, a light jog, and a few easy warm-up shots before they feel ready to compete at full speed. Drexler seemed able to skip all of that and go straight from stillness to top gear, which struck teammates like Horry as almost unfair. This ability to flip a switch so quickly gave Drexler a real edge, especially against physical opponents. Teams like the Detroit Pistons, known around the league as the Bad Boys, built entire game plans around wearing opponents down with rough, physical play, hoping to frustrate stars into losing their composure and making costly mistakes late in games. Against that kind of pressure, staying emotionally steady mattered just as much as staying physically tough. Drexler's calm nature meant he rarely got rattled, rarely argued with officials, and rarely let frustration change the way he played, even when the games in front of him grew rougher and more physical than usual. Robinson eventually realized that this calm surface was hiding something else entirely. Underneath it, Drexler hated losing just as fiercely as any of his more outwardly emotional teammates. He simply chose not to show that fire the way Robinson did. Instead of shouting, he let his play speak for him, night after night, without ever needing to prove anything through noise. A quiet competitor can be just as dangerous as a loud one, and in some ways even more dangerous than a loud one, because opponents never get an early warning sign of how badly that quiet competitor wants to win. That same mental toughness let Drexler play through injuries and stay productive across 13 straight seasons without any real decline in his level of play. Very few players manage to stay near their absolute peak for that long, since bodies wear down and motivation can fade once the losses and bruises pile up over so many years. A player who wastes energy arguing with referees, sulking after a bad call, or forcing plays out of frustration eventually pays a physical price for all of that wasted effort. Drexler avoided nearly all of it. His steady mood kept his mind clear enough to keep reading the floor the same way. Possession after possession, no matter what the scoreboard said or how physical the game had become. This calm approach also shaped the way Drexler led his teammates day to day. He never demanded special treatment, and he never needed to be the loudest voice in the locker room to be respected. He led through steady effort and quiet control instead, showing up ready to work every single day, which set a tone that players like Robinson eventually learned to appreciate and even try to copy in their own way. Even if Robinson's own natural personality stayed loud and energetic to the very end. By this point in the story, 5 different teammates have each described a different piece of the very same complete player. What remains now is the clearest proof of all. The honest view from the players whose entire job was to stop him, and who still walked away admitting that it simply could not be done. Former Minnesota Timberwolves player Sam Mitchell often had to guard Drexler in the early 1990s, and he later explained exactly why that job felt so hopeless. Every scouting report on Drexler said the same thing. Force him left. Cut off the right baseline. Everyone in the league knew he preferred his right hand, and coaches built entire game plans around that one simple fact, treating it as the key that would finally unlock how to slow him down. The plan never worked, no matter how many times a new coach tried it. Mitchell came to understand why once he talked it through with fellow guard John Lucas. Lucas made a simple point. If a move stops being a secret, if the entire league knows exactly which way a player wants to go and still cannot stop him, that move is no longer a weakness at all. It becomes proof of something much bigger, a sign of a player whose skill was strong enough to beat a plan that everyone in the building already knew was coming. Drexler beat the scouting report using his first step, quick changes of speed, and a spin move that could turn a defender the wrong way in an instant. He also had a dangerous baseline pull-up jump shot ready whenever a defender overcommitted to stopping his drive. If a defender stayed in front of him, Drexler simply rose into the air, absorbed the contact, and finished anyway with a right-handed finger roll or a powerful dunk, using his body control to adjust in mid-air, even after contact had already thrown his balance off. Even his known preference became a kind of decoy. As defenses leaned hard toward stopping his right hand, they opened gaps on the other side of the floor, and Drexler used the passing vision he built as a young point guard to find cutters and shooters waiting in that open space. A defense that spends all its attention on one side of the floor always pays for it somewhere else, and Drexler made sure that cost showed up on the scoreboard. Kobe Bryant later described part of his own defensive approach as something he borrowed directly from Drexler, using one hand to block a player's view of the floor while keeping the other hand ready to poke the ball away at the exact right moment. That detail shows how much respect Drexler earned on both ends of the court, not only as a scorer, but as a defender that later stars studied closely and tried to copy in their own games. The final numbers back up everything these 5 teammates described. Drexler finished his career with 22,195 points, 6,677 rebounds, 6,125 assists, and 2,207 steals, a stat line that very few players in the history of the sport can even approach. He is one of only 3 players in history to reach 20,000 points, 6,000 rebounds, and 6,000 assists, joining Oscar Robertson and John Havlicek in that small group. Add the steals to that list, and Drexler stands completely alone as the only player ever to reach all 4 of those numbers together in one career. Scottie Pippen once said that guarding Drexler during the 1992 finals was one of the most exhausting challenges of his whole career, pointing to Drexler's speed, his passing, and the constant pressure of his transition game as the hardest parts to handle. After that season, Drexler was traded to the Houston Rockets during the 1994-95 season, reuniting with his old college teammate Hakeem Olajuwon, the same big man he had once played beside inside the Phi Slama Jama front line. Together, they made a championship run in which Drexler posted 21, 4 points, 7, 0 rebounds, and 4 assists a game, and Houston swept Orlando to win it all, finally giving Drexler the championship ring that had eluded him during his years in Portland. Drexler entered the Basketball Hall of Fame in 2004, and later earned a spot on both the NBA's 50th and 75th anniversary teams, permanent honors that confirmed what his old Portland teammates had already known for years. Defenders knew exactly the hand he wanted, the lane he wanted, and the pace he wanted. It did not matter one bit. To the Trailblazers who saw the full picture, Clyde Drexler was not overlooked because he lacked greatness. He was overlooked because another legend stood right beside him. On the floor, the answer was much simpler than any comparison. He was impossible to stop.